Yeah. Well, I think flow is a very important concept to get behind and understand when you're looking with plants and being with them and interacting with them. In that, nothing is static. All living life isn't concrete or standing in one place, and there's an inner relationship that's going on between um, everything that's around there. So there's a tendency to look at this mint here, for instance, and think of it as an isolated entity that's alone and independent of everything else around it. And yet, the plant next to it, this buttercup, has a relationship, and there's a flow that goes between them, and that's something that we're just discovering now. I think getting deeper and deeper into is recognizing that that these two separate entities have this relationship. In fact, everything is related to everything else, and there's this whole flow that's constantly going on between. And as we discover more and more about that, we open up to the mystery of things being interrelated. And what I mean by that is there's a tendency in our mind, part of our mind, to isolate and separate something from something else. And that's an illusion. And the more we look into it, we realize that not only are these plants related by their roots underneath the ground, but there's also all these other organisms, mushrooms or fungi, that are being, in a sense, midwives, or linking up the different beings together. Not only mushrooms, but different kinds of bacteria. Most of the life form, most of the biomass of the earth is actually under the ground here. So we're kind of, in a sense, everything that's above the ground here is a flow that's coming from this underground invisible expression. And if we can look at that and realize that that's really, a lot of life is this invisible, that's not something we can tangibly necessarily reach out and touch, something that we have to move into through the mystery and open up to. We can realize that that's actually the keys to appreciating nature, appreciating life, going deeper. There was a time, that we've been on, and hopefully I think we're coming to the end of that we were learning through separating. But flow doesn't happen through separation. Flow happens through connection. And the idea of things flowing and interrelating is really much more in tune. Within our own bodies, we have this idea of thinking that we're separate beings. But I can feel it a lot when I'm in cities or I'm in fluorescent lit office buildings. There's this cutoff that happens. And it's sort of, we do that in our minds, we do that in our lives, we get in boxes, and we sort of isolate. We think of ourselves as, independent beings. But in reality, when you come out of those offices and come off that concrete road and go into the forest, you're not just simply walking through there. There's an invisible link up that's happening, and everything in the forest knows that you're there. And if you slow down enough, you can hear that through the birds talking. You can really feel it in your interaction with the soil. What I love about it is then if you can step beyond this idea of being separate and begin to interface with the plants and interface with the land, then we get that through smell, and we get that through taste, we get that through eyes, we get that through seeing. So these flows are all going on around us. And this illusion of us being separate from that like I said, has had some benefits and has had some lessons in it, but we need to get back to that recognition that we're really linked up. That everything about us is related, and this knowledge is coming out. It's coming out in a beautiful flow right now within our culture. And that recognition, like for instance, our digestive tract has 3.5 pounds of organisms living in it that are not us. And what is it? Half of our the mass and body weight of our body is really bacteria and organisms that aren't us, so to speak. And those organisms are interrelating with everything else. And then, of course, we look at our heart. People think of the heart as a pump, as a mechanistic aspect, organ of our body. Well, that's very limited thinking. The heart is actually tuned in and is an organ of sensory perception, and is tuned in to these, once again, these invisible flows that are going on and interrelating with everything. And so in coming in and having time with plants and interrelating with plants, there's so many levels that we can get to with it. And there's an initial impression when people get turned on to plants that, oh, how can I use this? Who is this to me? What's this medicine? What's this food? And you know, that works for a little while, but as I try to say to people, let's have a deeper relationship than that. You know, you don't go around, how do I use my friends? You know, you wouldn't keep your friends very long that way. So it's really kind of getting relating, and then the flow really starts happening when you start to really open up. And you know, there's that term empath, to be empathic and to reach out and feel empathy and to go into the other organisms that are around you. And then there's this interplay that goes on, and that relationship, that interplay going back and forth between, is how we're going to grow. It's really our next level of evolution. That us being conscious of that. That flow has been going on all the time, but now that we're becoming conscious of it, we're able to interrelate with it. So. Mm-hmm.